kings and queens and different political systems around Europe. That was not done by somebody raised in Stratford who stayed there.
So you mentioned that he was a lawyer. So when he came back from France, did he pursue a legal profession at that point?
I don't know if the correct word is pursue, only that he came back because he had a vision that his his foster father died. He had a vision of the house painted black, so he put it together and came back about a month after Mr. Bacon died. But when he came back, he was pretty much forced into becoming a lawyer by his mother. She wanted him to earn his keep. She kept him under her boot. She kept the purse strings really tight, and he had to learn some way to make his way. It was not his true love, and he said that from the beginning. He would rather be studying everything else in the world but law, which he found very dry. But that was his training, and you can see it in the plays, because there's a lot of legal language that was part of his vocabulary.
And then what was the turning point for him in his life when he decided to write the Shakespeare plays and put the codes in there? What kind of led up to that?
He actually had a visitation by a being because he was very discouraged, heartbroken, had gone through the trauma of being sent away from his true love, came back, and obviously his life was in a big question mark because the Queen didn't want to acknowledge him still. He didn't have any inheritance from the Bacons. He was basically broke, but he was royalty. So he had this educational training, but he did not have any way really to make a living. So he was put in Gray's Inn to learn to become a lawyer. He learned it as people today who would rather be doing a million different things with their life, but are doing their day-to-day job, and they have a love elsewhere. And Francis Bacon wanted to make all knowledge his universe, and he wanted to study the science, the literature, all the past writings in Latin and Greek. That's part of his soul. But he had to go to school, and that's what he did.
Well, I know that the Shakespearean plays actually transformed the English language, and so that was almost like a mission, do you think, for him to do that?
Absolutely. He wanted to raise up society. The language at that time was basically Latin of the people who had education, which was very few. There was a lot of dialects of English. A lot of people couldn't understand each other, sort of like New Yorkers versus Southerners versus people with Appalachian accents. So he wanted to unify it, but also expand it so that they can express themselves more freely in their own language and not use the Latin language. And you'll see a lot of words that he developed were from the Greek and the Latin and the French, etc., Spanish. And he made them into English words and made them more popular. So he greatly expanded it. And I think it's like 20,000 word vocabulary he had compared to the average person who had a few thousand. So he really stepped up and rose the consciousness of the people.
And so by transforming the English language, it became a language which could express very high ideals and philosophy, which of course he wanted to do with his advancement of learning and other philosophical tracks.
Sort of like the parables, I'd say. He wanted to use stories to reach the people, to teach them moral and ethical lessons. And you can see it throughout the plays. And there's such great wisdom in there. Regardless if there's codes or not, it's a lifetime study. And then when you find out about an inner story and the codes within it, it's like, gee, I wish I had a few